Depression is hard. Some days it feels like getting out of bed is the hardest thing in the world. Your mind feels heavy, your thoughts keep spinning, and even simple tasks feel impossible. You might wonder if anyone really understands what you're going through, or if you'll ever feel normal again. The truth is, depression is not your fault, and it doesn't define you. But the part that many people don't realize is that change is possible. Even small, consistent steps can start to shift the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you experience your day. In this video, you will learn how to face depression with practical actions you can actually do. You'll see how to notice your feelings without letting them take over, how small daily habits can bring real energy back, and how to keep showing up for yourself even when hope feels far away. By the end, you will have clear step-by-step strategies to regain control, rebuild confidence, and start feeling alive again. This is about real, human change that works. Chapter 1. Notice your sadness without judging yourself daily. Depression is not a sign of weakness or failure. It is a signal that the mind and body need attention, care, and understanding. Many people struggle quietly, feeling trapped by emotions they cannot control. The first step to overcoming depression is noticing it without judgment. Awareness allows the mind to stop fighting itself and begin the process of healing. Observing feelings with honesty creates space for clarity and action, instead of letting sadness dictate every decision. The mind often misunderstands sadness as something to suppress or escape. This avoidance deepens depression. Noticing your feelings does not make them stronger. It helps you understand what is happening. Start by recognizing simple sensations, a heaviness in the chest, tension in the shoulders, or fatigue in the body. Identify these feelings and accept them as information rather than flaws. Acceptance reduces resistance and frees energy for practical action. Daily awareness is essential. Set aside moments to check in with your emotions. Ask yourself how you feel without trying to fix it immediately. Some days the answer will be heavy, other days lighter. Each observation builds a pattern of understanding your mind. Over time, you can detect early warning signs, recognize triggers, and respond before emotions escalate. This daily practice trains the mind to notice patterns, which is crucial for recovery. Emotional honesty strengthens resilience. Avoid hiding behind distractions, excessive work, or endless entertainment. Silence and reflection are not weaknesses. They are opportunities to reconnect with yourself. Depression often grows when life moves too fast to notice how you feel. By slowing down, observing, and naming emotions, you regain control over your inner state. This practice builds emotional clarity, which is the foundation for meaningful change. Understanding the mind-body connection is vital. Depression affects thought, mood, energy, and physical health. Fatigue, sleep disruption, changes in appetite, and restlessness are signals that require attention. Recognize these signs and respond with deliberate action. Prioritize small routines such as regular sleep, balanced meals, light movement, and fresh air. Simple physical care strengthens mental resilience and enhances the capacity to manage emotions effectively. Thought patterns play a powerful role. Depression often comes with repetitive negative thinking. Observing thoughts without identifying with them is a transformative skill. Notice the critical inner voice, the sense of hopelessness, or the tendency to blame yourself. Labeling these thoughts allows the mind to step back. Awareness reduces their power, enabling rational assessment and more constructive decision-making. Small actions matter. Depression can make even basic tasks feel impossible. Start with achievable steps, such as getting out of bed, drinking water, or taking a short walk. Each small completion sends a signal to the mind that effort is possible. These repeated successes rebuild confidence gradually. Over time, small actions compound, forming the foundation for larger behavioral change and mental strength. Social connection supports recovery. Isolation amplifies depression. Seek supportive relationships with friends, family, or professional counselors. Openly share experiences and feelings. Vulnerability fosters connection, understanding, and support. Surrounding yourself with compassionate people reduces the sense of being trapped in your own mind and creates an external support system that reinforces daily progress. Focus on controllable factors. Depression often emphasizes what is lost or beyond reach. Redirect attention to what can be influenced today. Nutrition, sleep, light activity, and structured daily routines are within control. By consistently attending to these factors, you create stability that reduces the emotional volatility caused by depression. This focus empowers you to act even when motivation feels low. Mindfulness strengthens awareness. Practice observing sensations, emotions, and thoughts without judgment. Engage fully in each moment, noticing details of daily life, a breeze outside, the taste of a meal, the sensation of walking. Mindfulness trains the mind to separate observation from reaction, which diminishes the intensity of negative feelings and enhances clarity. Present moment awareness is a powerful tool for reducing the grip of depression. Journaling reinforces insight. Write down feelings, observations, and experiences daily. Recording your thoughts creates a map of emotional patterns and triggers. This habit encourages reflection, accountability, and problem solving. Reviewing past entries reveals progress and teaches lessons about responses to challenging emotions. Journaling turns fleeting feelings into tangible information that guides action and recovery. Challenge negative assumptions gently. Depression often presents distorted views of reality. Test thoughts against evidence, not judgment. Ask, is this true right now? What would I say to a friend experiencing? This approach cultivates critical thinking, reduces automatic negativity, and strengthens self-compassion. Each moment of thoughtful questioning rewires the mind to recognize distortion and respond rationally rather than reactively. Physical movement is essential. Light exercise stimulates endorphins, improves energy, and enhances mental clarity. Start with simple routines, walking, stretching, or breathing exercises. Consistency matters more than intensity. Movement signals to the mind that effort is possible, and it gradually reduces the inertia created by depression. Physical activity also improves sleep quality, further supporting mental recovery. Set small goals daily. Depression makes the future feel distant and overwhelming. Break tasks into manageable steps and celebrate completion. Each accomplishment strengthens self-efficacy, showing the mind that progress is possible. Small goals build momentum, providing the psychological proof that effort produces change, even when emotions are heavy. Professional support enhances recovery. Therapists, counselors, and medical professionals provide guidance, accountability, and strategies for managing depression. Seeking help is not weakness, it is an investment in mental health. Professional insight complements personal practices and ensures that underlying conditions are addressed responsibly and effectively. Create a structured daily routine. Uncertainty and unstructured time can intensify depressive thought. A consistent routine anchors the day, creating predictability and stability. Include sleep, meals, physical activity, reflection, and relaxation. Structure reduces mental chaos, increases a sense of control, and supports sustainable emotional improvement. Practice self-compassion. Consistent depression thrives on self-criticism. Speak to yourself with patience, understanding, and encouragement. Treat yourself with the same care you would offer a close friend. Self-compassion reduces internal conflict, builds resilience, and motivates consistent effort without fear of judgment. Monitor triggers and responses. Notice situations, thoughts, or behaviors that increase depressive feelings. Track how you respond and identify patterns. Awareness of triggers empowers you to prepare, respond strategically, or adjust behavior. Prevention is often more effective than reaction. Engage in purposeful activity. Work on projects, hobbies, or goals that provide meaning. Purpose shifts focus from internal pain to external contribution. Engaging in meaningful activity fosters accomplishment, reinforces identity, and strengthens motivation, helping to counteract feelings of emptiness or hopelessness. Practice gratitude deliberately. Daily acknowledgement of small positive aspects of life shifts perspective. Note 3 things each day that are working, appreciated, or encouraging. Gratitude does not ignore difficulty, but it counterbalances overwhelming negative focus and reinforces mental resilience. Monitor progress regularly. Reflect weekly on achievements, lessons, and emotional patterns. Notice improvement, even if small. Progress may be subtle, but consistent reflection reinforces awareness, self-trust, and confidence in the ability to manage depression over time. Visualize strength and recovery. Mentally rehearse completing tasks, handling challenges, and feeling steady emotionally. Visualizations strengthens mental pathways, enhances confidence, and prepares the mind for real-life application. Daily practice reinforces belief in capability and improves performance under stress. Accept that setbacks are part of the process. Depression may fluctuate. Awareness of emotional shifts prevents self-blame and reduces discouragement. Each setback provides insight, teaches resilience, and informs future responses. Recovery is built on persistence, not perfection. Combine these strategies consistently. Daily noticing, mindful observation, movement, structured routines, purposeful activity, and self-compassion compound into sustainable mental strength. Over time, the mind becomes more resilient, capable of regulating emotions, and able to engage fully in life even during challenging periods. Depression loses its grip when the mind is trained to observe, respond, and act thoughtfully. By observing sadness without judgment, attending to the body, engaging in meaningful actions, seeking support, and reflecting consistently, recovery becomes attainable. This approach teaches the mind that emotions are signals, not commands. Awareness empowers choice. Choice empowers action. Action builds momentum. Momentum transforms life. Overcoming depression is not about forcing happiness. It is about building awareness, developing daily habits, and responding to life with intention. The mind learns to distinguish temporary emotions from permanent reality, to act despite discomfort, and to find stability even when feelings fluctuate. This process is strategic, practical, and achievable with consistent effort. Notice your sadness daily. Accept your experience without judgment. Take small, consistent actions to care for body and mind. Build supportive routines and connections. Reflect, journal, and learn from each moment. Engage in purposeful activity and practice self-compassion. Persist through setbacks and focus on achievable daily progress. Over time, the mind strengthens, emotions stabilize, and life begins to feel manageable and meaningful once again. Chapter 2. Ground your mind through simple, repeatable daily actions. Building stability in your mind begins with small, intentional actions repeated consistently every day. The mind thrives on routine and structure, especially when it is under the strain of depression or emotional unrest. Random behavior or chaotic schedules only amplify confusion, anxiety, and low energy. To regain control, the first step is to identify simple actions that can be done reliably every day. These actions create a foundation for mental clarity, emotional regulation, and gradual recovery. They anchor you in the present moment and offer a sense of accomplishment that slowly rebuilds self-trust. Start with waking up at a consistent time every day. The time does not have to be early or extreme. It simply needs to be steady. Consistency signals to the body and mind that a predictable rhythm exists. Sleep-wake cycles affect mood, energy levels, and mental clarity. When the mind knows what to expect, stress and tension decrease. Over time, waking at the same hour each day aligns your biological and mental processes, making it easier to act with purpose throughout the day. Hydration and nutrition are not merely physical concerns. They directly affect cognitive function and mood. Drinking water first thing in the morning and consuming simple, balanced meals at regular intervals supports stable energy levels. When blood sugar fluctuates, the mind experiences fogginess, irritability, and increased vulnerability to negative thinking. Preparing simple meals daily is a tangible act of care that reinforces the idea that your actions matter. Each completed meal is a small victory that builds confidence and self-respect. Movement, even in minimal forms, grounds the mind. A short walk, stretching, or gentle body exercises release tension, improve blood flow, and enhance focus. The mind and body are interconnected, and physical activity sends signals to the brain that energy is available, the body is supported, and effort is worthwhile. Regular movement establishes a rhythm that counteracts lethargy and low motivation. These simple, repeated physical actions anchor attention in the body rather than in spiraling negative thoughts. Structuring daily tasks around achievable goals provides clarity and focus. When overwhelmed, depression convinces the mind that nothing is possible. By breaking the day into small, manageable actions, you regain agency. Start with 1 or 2 simple tasks in the morning. Completing them fosters momentum and signals the brain that effort produces results. Gradually increase task complexity. Each success, no matter how minor, accumulates into a pattern of reliability that strengthens the mind's ability to handle larger challenges. Journaling for a few minutes each day organizes thoughts and emotions. Writing down feelings, plans, and observations helps separate what is internal from what can be acted upon. It gives the mind an external reference point, preventing repetitive mental loops. The habit of noting progress or setbacks builds perspective. Over weeks, reviewing these notes reveals patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed, highlighting triggers, progress, and areas that require attention. This structured reflection enhances mental stability by converting abstract feelings into actionable insight. Mindful breathing exercises are simple yet powerful daily tools. Spending 2 to 5 minutes focusing on slow, steady breaths reduces physiological stress responses, centers attention, and signals calm to the nervous system. These exercises can be repeated multiple times per day, particularly when overwhelming thoughts or emotions arise. Consistent practice strengthens the ability to remain present rather than being swept away by mental turbulence. The mind gradually learns to respond instead of reacting, which is a critical foundation for emotional resilience. Limiting decision fatigue stabilizes mental energy. Every choice, no matter how small, consumes cognitive resources. By creating repeatable routines for meals, clothing, and morning or evening habits, the mind is freed to focus on meaningful decisions. Predictable daily structures reduce unnecessary mental friction, decrease anxiety, and allow attention to shift toward recovery and growth. These repeated choices reinforce control, offering psychological safety and consistency that support overall mental health. Intentional digital boundaries help maintain focus and reduce unnecessary stress. Constant exposure to social media or news amplifies negative emotions, comparison, and distraction. Designate specific times for email, messages, or social media, rather than checking impulsively throughout the day. By repeating these boundaries consistently, the mind learns to operate without frequent interruptions and remains grounded in tasks that contribute to stability and progress. Controlled exposure builds concentration and reduces mental overstimulation. Engaging in a brief daily reflection on gratitude anchors attention on positive elements of life. Writing or mentally noting 3 small things each day that provide comfort, support, or joy trains the brain to notice stability and opportunity even amidst emotional challenges. This practice does not ignore difficulties, but reinforces awareness of what is consistent and reliable, creating a counterbalance to depressive focus on loss or failure. Daily repetition of gratitude exercises rewires attention patterns toward balance and resilience. Creating a nightly wind-down routine is essential. The evening signals the mind to shift from activity to rest. Simple repeated actions, such as dimming lights, preparing clothes for the next day, or taking a brief walk, help establish cues for sleep. Predictable routines enhance sleep quality, which directly affects emotional regulation and mental clarity. Over time, the repetition of these actions conditions the mind and body to transition smoothly into restorative rest, creating a foundation for consistency in the following day. Engaging in purposeful creative action each day strengthens the mind. This does not require talent or grand achievements. Writing, drawing, organizing, or planning a project for even 10 minutes exercises attention, decision-making, and follow-through. Simple creative routines repeated daily enhance confidence and demonstrate tangible results of effort. Purposeful actions shift focus from internal despair to controlled engagement with life, establishing a reliable cycle of accomplishment that counteracts feelings of helplessness. Setting short intervals for focused work or reflection stabilizes attention. The mind fatigues easily when overwhelmed. Use 20 to 30-minute sessions for tasks that matter, then pause to reset. Over time, these repeated intervals train concentration, reduce anxiety, and provide clear markers of achievement. Consistent focus practice builds mental endurance, allowing for greater engagement in daily life while maintaining emotional equilibrium. Engaging with supportive people consistently grounds emotional well-being. Daily interactions, even brief, remind the mind that connection exists outside internal struggle. Regular communication with trusted friends or family strengthens a sense of reality, reduces isolation, and reinforces accountability. Repeated engagement in supportive relationships builds trust in social stability and creates a rhythm that counters depressive withdrawal tendencies. Morning exposure to natural light stabilizes mood and circadian rhythm. Opening a window, walking outside, or sitting in sunlight for a few minutes signals the body that the day has begun. Daily light exposure regulates hormones that affect energy, attention, and emotional regulation. Repeating this simple habit consistently helps the mind recognize external cues for activity, reducing feelings of lethargy and internal chaos. Micro goals for physical organization anchor the mind. Small repeated actions like making the bed, washing dishes, or tidying a space signal accomplishment and establish order. Each completed action reinforces the pattern of predictability, giving the mind evidence that control is possible. Gradual accumulation of these small acts creates an environment that supports emotional stability and mental clarity. Reflection on personal values daily connects action to meaning. Asking, "What matters most today?" or reviewing priorities aligns behavior with purpose. Repetition of this reflection grounds decision-making in clarity rather than impulsivity. Values-based action provides a stable internal compass that guides emotional responses, reduces aimlessness, and strengthens resilience against depressive tendencies. Developing a short list of coping strategies repeated daily enhances emotional preparedness. Techniques such as stepping outside, deep breathing, or journaling provide structured responses to rising stress or negative emotion. Practicing these strategies even when calm trains the mind to rely on them instinctively. Repetition creates automatic pathways for healthy responses rather than reactive patterns that exacerbate depression. Engaging in sensory grounding exercises multiple times a day anchors awareness in the present. Focusing on what is seen, heard, felt, or smelled reduces rumination and fosters calm. Repeating these exercises helps the mind recognize tangible reality rather than being dominated by internal negativity. Daily grounding increases clarity, concentration, and a sense of stability. Tracking progress in small, consistent ways reinforces momentum. Writing down completed tasks, moments of calm, or personal achievements creates a visual record of effort and success. Daily tracking affirms that consistent action produces tangible results. Repeated acknowledgement of progress strengthens self-efficacy, reduces feelings of helplessness, and motivates continued engagement in stabilizing actions. Limiting multitasking maintains focus. Performing one task at a time consistently allows completion and reinforces attention. Repetition trains the mind to sustain engagement, reduces mental clutter, and enhances clarity. Over time, the habit of single tasking grounds thought processes, creating a reliable mental environment conducive to recovery. Engaging in brief periods of self-reflection before bed consolidates learning from the day. Repeated nightly evaluation, considering what worked, what felt challenging, and what to continue anchors insight in memory. This repetition strengthens mental patterns, encourages proactive adjustment, and reinforces the sense that the mind is capable of managing itself effectively. Repetition of simple, consistent rituals in all aspects of daily life, morning routines, meals, movement, reflection, and interaction, builds a foundation for emotional and mental stability. Over weeks, these repeated practices create predictability, reduce chaos, and gradually train the mind to remain grounded even under stress. Each completed action signals reliability, competence, and the ability to influence internal experience. Grounding the mind through daily repeatable actions is not a one-time task, but a continuous investment. The cumulative effect of small, consistent, intentional behaviors transforms mental patterns, reduces vulnerability to emotional overwhelm, and strengthens resilience. By anchoring attention, regulating body and mind, and establishing repeatable routines, a foundation is built that allows consistent engagement with life, improved emotional clarity, and a path toward recovery and growth. The consistency of these practices compounds over time. Each day reinforces neural pathways that favor stability, focus, and calm awareness. Simple repeated actions provide tangible proof of progress and capability. The mind gradually shifts from chaos and indecision to stability and confidence. Grounding is not a single solution, but a lifestyle of conscious, repeated choices that secure mental clarity, emotional regulation, and practical readiness to face challenges. Daily grounding is a skill learned through deliberate repetition. It requires patience, persistence, and attention to small details. With each passing day, the mind becomes more capable of holding space for emotions without being overwhelmed, managing attention with greater focus, and responding to life with intentionality rather than reaction. These repeated actions create a reliable mental foundation, making it possible to face depression, uncertainty, and life's challenges with steadiness, clarity, and growing confidence. Chapter 3. Separate facts from feelings. When thoughts feel heavy. When thoughts feel heavy, it is easy to assume that everything you feel reflects reality. The mind confuses emotion with fact, which amplifies distress and prevents clear action. Separating facts from feelings is essential because it allows the mind to respond rather than react. Feelings are signals, not verdicts. They indicate what your mind is experiencing, but they do not define the truth of a situation. Recognizing this distinction provides clarity and creates space for deliberate choices instead of automatic reactions. The first step in separating facts from feelings is observing your thoughts objectively. Notice when your mind interprets events in a negative light. Write down what actually happened versus the story your emotions create around it. For example, if a friend does not respond to a message, the fact is they did not reply. The feeling might be rejection or fear of being unimportant. These are separate. One is a verifiable observation, the other is a mental response. Distinguishing the two reduces unnecessary suffering. Awareness of language is a practical tool. Pay attention to words used. Words like always, never, impossible and worthless exaggerate feelings into assumed truths. Replace them with neutral language, describing facts. For instance, instead of thinking I will always fail, acknowledge I did not succeed in this instance. Language shapes perception, and consciously choosing fact-based language interrupts automatic negative thinking patterns. Checking assumptions is another critical practice. When a thought arises that carries weight, question its origin. Ask, what evidence supports this? What evidence contradicts it? Often, thoughts feel true because they align with internal fears or past experiences. Separating fact from assumption prevents these thoughts from dictating behavior. Evidence-based assessment trains the mind to distinguish reality from internal projection, which diminishes overwhelm and restores control. Creating a mental pause before responding is essential. Heavy thoughts tend to provoke immediate reactions that reinforce negativity. When a strong feeling arises, pause for a moment. Label the feeling and identify the corresponding fact. For example, feeling anxious about a work task is valid, but the fact may be that the task is due tomorrow, not that failure is inevitable. This pause interrupts automatic escalation and allows calm assessment before action. Visualization of clarity reinforces separation. Imagine holding thoughts and feelings in separate spaces. Place the observable facts on one side and emotions on the other. This mental exercise strengthens the habit of distinction. Each time thoughts feel overwhelming, mentally sorting them into these categories creates consistency and reliability in processing emotions. Over time, the mind becomes skilled at automatic separation, reducing confusion and distress. Journaling is highly effective in practice. Record situations, your emotional response, and the actual observable facts. For instance, note an argument with a colleague, your feelings of anger, and the specific words exchanged. This habit trains attention to concrete reality while acknowledging emotion. Reviewing journal entries over time highlights patterns where feelings have exaggerated situations, creating learning opportunities and reinforcing clarity. Prioritizing observation over interpretation stabilizes heavy thinking. When a thought arises, focus first on what is objectively true rather than the conclusion your mind jumps to. For example, noticing tension in a conversation is a fact. Concluding the relationship is failing is an interpretation. Separating these layers allows measured responses and prevents spiral thinking. Over time, observation becomes the foundation for decisions instead of emotional reaction. Daily practice of fact-checking strengthens neural pathways. The mind learns by repetition. Each time a thought arises, analyze its content. Is this an observable fact or a subjective feeling? This disciplined approach rewires cognitive patterns to reduce automatic distortion. Repeated application in small daily events gradually builds a mindset that processes information with clarity and balance, even under stress or pressure. Emotional labeling is a practical skill. Name the feelings accurately: sadness, frustration, disappointment, or fatigue. Labeling reduces ambiguity, preventing feelings from becoming overwhelming narratives. Combine labeling with fact assessment. Acknowledge, I feel anxious because my report is due tomorrow, rather than I feel anxious and therefore I am failing. This approach grounds emotions in context, giving clarity and actionable insight. Recognizing cognitive distortions is another critical step. The mind often exaggerates negative patterns when heavy thoughts dominate. Distortions include catastrophizing, overgeneralization, personalization, and mind reading. Identifying these distortions as mental processes rather than truth allows separation of fact from interpretation. Each time a distortion is noticed, pause and reframe based on objective evidence. Repetition strengthens discernment and reduces emotional volatility. Engaging in structured reflection each evening consolidates this skill. Review events, thoughts, and emotional reactions. Compare what happened with how you felt. Identify discrepancies between fact and feeling. Reflecting daily reinforces awareness and builds the habit of separating reality from emotional interpretation. Over weeks, this practice diminishes the intensity of overwhelming thoughts and improves decision-making under pressure. Using physical grounding reinforces mental separation. Heavy thoughts can create a sense of being mentally unmoored. Sensory focus, feeling your feet on the floor, noticing breathing, or touching an object anchors attention in the present. When combined with evaluating facts versus feelings, grounding reduces emotional escalation and strengthens clarity. The mind learns to integrate sensation and reasoning, creating stability in heavy moments. Action based on facts, not feelings, builds confidence. When decisions are guided by observable reality rather than emotional interpretation, results become more predictable. Each successful outcome reinforces the value of separating fact from feeling. Over time, the mind naturally defaults to this practice, reducing impulsivity and emotional overwhelm. Engaging supportive dialogue reinforces this skill. Discuss situations with trusted individuals who can provide objective perspectives. External viewpoints offer clarity and reduce bias created by internal emotional narrative. Over time, repeated conversations build skill in assessing facts independently, internalizing objectivity, and strengthening mental resilience. Practicing gratitude provides balance for emotional perception. Daily acknowledgement of factual positives prevents the mind from focusing exclusively on negative feelings. Recording simple factual elements, completion of tasks, successful interactions, or steady routines reinforces a reality-based perspective. Consistent focus on observable achievements diminishes the power of heavy, distorted thoughts and cultivates grounded awareness. Time-stamping emotions is practical. Note the moment when a heavy thought arises and the circumstances surrounding it. Recording time and context allows pattern recognition, helping to predict triggers and separate transient feelings from persistent realities. This repeated awareness improves preparedness and reduces susceptibility to emotional escalation. Visualization of decision outcomes improves clarity. Mentally simulate responses based on facts rather than feelings. Consider likely consequences, logical steps, and realistic timelines. Repeating this mental rehearsal trains judgment and reduces impulsive reactions influenced by overwhelming emotion. The mind strengthens its capacity to act deliberately, rather than reactively. Physical activity amplifies mental separation. Exercise produces physiological changes that reduce emotional intensity and create space for rational thought. Combined with deliberate reflection on facts, movement helps maintain perspective and prevents overwhelming feelings from dominating cognition. Daily repetition reinforces the connection between body, mind, and clarity. Practicing incremental exposure to difficult situations reinforces differentiation. Facing small challenges while consciously separating fact from feeling trains resilience. Each encounter strengthens the ability to act under emotional weight without conflating perception with reality. Repeated exposure builds confidence, reduces avoidance, and enhances practical coping skills. Developing a mental checklist for daily evaluation supports separation. Ask, what is happening? What evidence supports this? How do I feel? Is the emotional response proportional to observable reality? Repeating this checklist in diverse situations habituates systematic assessment, creating a reliable cognitive framework for responding to heavy thoughts. Mindful meditation enhances clarity. Focused attention on the breath or physical sensations while observing thoughts without attachment strengthens awareness. Meditation trains the mind to notice thoughts without automatically accepting them as true. Consistent practice reinforces the skill of distinguishing internal experiences from external realities, improving mental stability. Breaking complex situations into components aids fact-based assessment. Separate people, events, actions, and outcomes from interpretations and assumptions. Repeat this analytical approach daily to build systematic evaluation skills. The mind gradually processes complexity with reduced emotional bias and increased accuracy in judgment. Engaging in reflective questioning improves objectivity. Ask, what evidence exists? What is assumed? How might someone else view this? This repeated inquiry habitually separates perception from emotion. Over time, mental clarity strengthens, and the mind becomes capable of navigating uncertainty without unnecessary distress. Acknowledging emotional validity while evaluating facts maintains balance. Feelings are legitimate responses, but do not dictate truth. Repeatedly reinforcing this distinction ensures that emotional expression is permitted without controlling decision-making or perception. This balance prevents suppression of emotions while preserving clarity and agency. Documenting emotional triggers and responses in writing creates a reference for comparison. Tracking factual events versus emotional interpretations over time highlights recurring patterns, enabling proactive management. Repetition solidifies recognition of distinctions and strengthens mental processing of complex emotional experiences. Consistent application of these practices transforms thinking. Each repeated effort, labeling feelings, recording facts, pausing, reflecting and questioning, builds mental structure. Over months, the mind naturally differentiates facts from feelings, reducing the intensity of overwhelming thoughts and increasing the capacity for measured action. Separating facts from feelings is not a one-time skill. It is cultivated through persistent daily practice. The mind learns by experience. Each time a thought is assessed objectively, neural pathways are reinforced, increasing clarity, stability, and confidence. Over time, heavy thinking becomes manageable. Emotions remain informative rather than controlling, and the ability to navigate complex situations grows steadily. By observing thoughts without judgment, labeling emotions, questioning assumptions, and grounding attention in reality, the mind develops resilience and precision. Daily repetition ensures that this skill becomes automatic. Over time, separating fact from feeling transforms perception, decision-making, and emotional regulation, providing a foundation for recovery, stability, and personal growth.
Chapter 4. Get up and move to interrupt mental fog. Mental fog is one of the most insidious obstacles to clarity, productivity, and emotional stability. It creeps in slowly and makes simple decisions feel monumental. The body and mind are deeply connected, and often mental fog is not just a product of thoughts, but also of inactivity, stagnation, and lack of physical engagement. Movement is one of the most immediate and effective ways to break through this fog. Simply rising, stretching, or walking triggers physiological changes that sharpen attention, regulate mood, and restore mental clarity. Action interrupts inertia
and signals to the brain that it is time to engage rather than remain stuck. Starting with small, deliberate movements is key. It is not about running a marathon or pushing your limits. Even standing, stretching arms, or turning your shoulders can shift energy within minutes. These simple actions increase blood flow, oxygenate the brain, and stimulate the nervous system. Mental fog often results from sluggish circulation and low stimulation. Repeating small movements consistently throughout the day reactivates mental focus and improves responsiveness. Walking is one of the most accessible ways to clear the mind. A few minutes of purposeful walking allows the body to reset while the mind observes and processes information more efficiently. The rhythm of steps, combined with the sensory input of the environment, sounds, sights, and tactile sensations, anchors attention in the present. Repeated exposure to this simple activity conditions the mind to recognize that action, even minimal, interrupts overthinking and mental stagnation. Intentional breathing combined with movement amplifies effects. Deep, steady breaths, taken while stretching, walking, or performing light exercises, signal calm to the nervous system, while simultaneously energizing the body. This combination enhances focus, reduces tension, and improves mood. When mental fog is heavy, these repeated practices create a tangible bridge between the body and the mind, helping to stabilize both. Incorporating light resistance or strength exercises daily is highly beneficial. Movements such as squats, push-ups, or lifting simple objects activate muscles and stimulate the brain's reward system. These exercises increase dopamine and endorphin levels, which directly impact attention, motivation, and overall cognitive function. Mental fog is often accompanied by lethargy and lack of motivation, and these micro-movements create momentum that extends beyond the physical into thought patterns. Standing up periodically during sedentary periods prevents mental stagnation. Long periods of sitting intensify fog, reduce circulation, and weaken alertness. By establishing a habit of standing, shifting weight, or pacing for a few moments each hour, the brain receives regular input that resets focus. Over time, repeated micro breaks create a pattern of engagement that reduces fatigue and mental heaviness. Hydration supports movement and mental clarity simultaneously. Drinking water before, during, or after activity ensures that the body functions efficiently. Dehydration often manifests as brain fog, low energy, and difficulty concentrating. When combined with intentional movement, hydration boosts circulation, nutrient delivery, and cognitive alertness. Repeating this practice throughout the day reinforces both physical and mental energy levels. Engaging in outdoor movement adds sensory stimulation that indoor activity cannot replicate. Sunlight exposure regulates circadian rhythms, increases vitamin D levels, and enhances alertness. Natural scenery, sounds, and smells provide novel input to the brain, breaking habitual thought loops that contribute to fog. Daily outdoor movement trains the mind to associate physical activity with heightened awareness and refreshed cognition. Structured exercise routines, even brief, build consistent mental clarity. Establishing a morning routine of stretching, walking, or light aerobic activity signals the brain to start the day actively rather than passively. The repeated pattern conditions the nervous system to anticipate engagement and increases mental responsiveness over time. Mental fog becomes less frequent when the body is accustomed to moving at predictable intervals. Incorporating dynamic movements such as arm swings, torso rotations, or leg lifts further stimulates neural pathways. These actions engage multiple areas of the brain simultaneously, enhancing coordination, attention, and information processing. When thoughts feel sluggish, dynamic movement interrupts entrenched patterns and reorients the mind toward alertness. Daily repetition ensures that the brain becomes conditioned to respond to physical cues with clarity. Changing posture frequently during daily activities
interrupts cognitive stagnation. Sitting with slumped shoulders or a forward head position reduces lung capacity and blood flow, amplifying mental fog. Consciously straightening the spine, lifting the chest, and opening the shoulders improves oxygen delivery to the brain. Over time, repeated attention to posture strengthens awareness and directly contributes to mental sharpness. Pairing mental tasks with movement enhances cognitive performance. For example, walking while planning your day, stretching while reviewing mental notes, or pacing while brainstorming ideas engages both body and mind. This dual engagement reduces mental inertia and strengthens the association between movement and productive thought. Repetition of these paired activity strains the brain to integrate physical action with mental clarity automatically. Intentional pauses with movement interrupt rumination. Heavy thoughts often cycle repeatedly, creating emotional and cognitive fatigue. Standing, pacing, or performing light exercises during these moments breaks the cycle. Each repeated interruption conditions the mind to reset when overwhelmed, rather than becoming trapped in unproductive loops. Over time, the brain associates movement with problem solving and renewed focus. Incorporating balance and coordination exercises enhances neurological activation. Movements that require focus, stability, and controlled effort stimulate brain regions involved in attention, planning, and spatial awareness. Simple practices like standing on one foot or controlled lunges activate both cognitive and physical faculties. Repeated practice strengthens the connection between mind and body, reducing the intensity of mental fog in daily life. Movement as a mood regulator is profound. Physical activity triggers the release of neurotransmitters that reduce stress, improve motivation, and enhance emotional resilience. Mental fog is often accompanied by lethargy, anxiety, or low mood, and repeated physical engagement combats these effects at their source. Over time, the mind associates movement with relief, reinforcing the habit and creating a reliable tool for clarity. Micro-routines for movement interrupt sedentary habits. Scheduling brief bursts of activity every 60 to 90 minutes maintains circulation, attention, and alertness. Even 2 to 3 minutes of stretching, marching in place, or torso rotations produces noticeable cognitive benefits. Repeating these micro-routines daily ensures that mental fog is addressed proactively rather than reactively, creating a more consistent state of readiness. Incorporating rhythmic activity, such as marching, jumping jacks, or timed steps, enhances neural coordination. Rhythm stimulates brain regions that process timing, attention, and sequencing. Repetition of rhythmic movement produces reliable improvements in cognitive clarity and focus. Mental fog is reduced because the mind is engaged in both motor and sensory processing simultaneously, preventing stagnation. Intentional breaks in natural sunlight while moving improve alertness and energy. Exposure to daylight stimulates circadian regulation, improves mood, and supports mental processing speed. Daily outdoor movement combined with sunlight strengthens the brain's responsiveness and reinforces the connection between physical activity and mental clarity. Mental fog diminishes when the body receives repeated environmental and physical cues that promote alertness. Engaging multiple senses during movement increases cognitive engagement. Noticing temperature, texture, sound, and visual stimuli while walking, stretching, or performing exercises activates broader neural networks. This sensory awareness interrupts repetitive thought patterns and strengthens presence. Daily practice trains the mind to use environmental input as a tool for breaking mental inertia. Mindful walking integrates awareness and movement. Focus attention on the feeling of feet contacting the ground, the movement of limbs, and the rhythm of breath. Observing these details anchors attention in the body and the present moment. Repeated practice conditions the mind to separate from heavy thoughts and enhances clarity while moving. Over time, The brain responds to walking with increased cognitive presence automatically. Dynamic stretching enhances flexibility and mental circulation simultaneously. Movements that involve opening, bending, and twisting the body increase blood flow and prepare muscles for more extensive activity. Mental fog often coincides with physical tension, and repeated stretching releases both. Daily incorporation of these routines fosters alertness and a sense of readiness that extends to cognitive function. Movement disrupts negative thought loops. Direct physical activity interrupts cycles of worry, self-criticism, or rumination. Each repetition of standing, walking, or stretching creates a neural break, allowing thoughts to reset. The mind learns that action produces change, which reduces feelings of helplessness and mental stagnation. Over time, movement becomes a reliable intervention for maintaining clarity. Pairing music with movement enhances cognitive stimulation. Listening to rhythmic or motivational music while walking, stretching, or performing light exercise engages the auditory system, improves coordination, and boosts mood. Daily repetition reinforces the link between movement, mental stimulation, and emotional regulation. Mental fog diminishes because the brain is engaged in multiple sensory channels concurrently. Tracking movement throughout the day reinforces accountability and habit formation. Recording steps, exercises, or active breaks provides tangible evidence of effort and consistency. Repeated tracking motivates continued engagement and reinforces the connection between action and mental clarity. Over weeks, this habit establishes a reliable structure for reducing cognitive heaviness. Movement as a transitional tool prepares the mind for new tasks. Shifting from inactivity to activity primes attention, focus, and readiness. Daily repetition of this transition signals the brain that each new task is an opportunity rather than a burden. Mental fog is minimized when the mind expects movement before engagement with complex cognitive demands. Gradual increases in activity improve both endurance and cognitive function. Repeating slightly longer walks, additional stretches, or more complex exercises incrementally strengthens both physical and mental system. Mental fog becomes easier to disrupt because the brain and body are conditioned to respond reliably to increased effort. Daily progressive movement builds resilience and sustained alertness. Movement also supports emotional regulation, which reduces cognitive heaviness. Physical activity decreases stress hormone levels and increases neurotransmitters associated with focus and motivation. Repeating movement throughout the day allows the mind to process emotions efficiently and prevents them from overwhelming thought. Mental fog decreases because emotion and cognition are both stabilized through repeated action. Integrating movement into daily routines creates predictability that supports the mind. Repetition, walking at the same time, stretching at regular intervals, or pacing during calls reinforces stability. Mental fog is less likely to accumulate when repeated structures cue the mind to engage physically and mentally. Consistency strengthens the neural link between motion and clarity. Even brief bursts of intense movement stimulate alertness. Jumping, sprinting in place, or fast-paced steps increase heart rate and oxygen delivery. Mental fog is broken quickly through these repeated short interventions. Over time, the brain anticipates these bursts as a tool for clearing stagnation, making focus more accessible throughout the day. Pairing movement with breathing exercises and environmental awareness builds holistic clarity. Repeating these integrated practices daily trains the mind to respond automatically to physical cues with improved focus. Mental fog diminishes because the brain becomes accustomed to processing multiple inputs while remaining attentive. The cumulative effect of repeated, intentional movement transforms cognitive patterns. Over days and weeks, the mind learns that mental fog is temporary and can be interrupted reliably. Each small action compounds, reinforcing alertness, focus, emotional regulation, and readiness to engage with life.
Physical activity becomes not just a response, but a preventative strategy for maintaining clarity. Movement is a practical, immediate, and powerful tool for mental clarity. Daily repetition anchors attention, resets cognitive processes, and restores energy. Over time, the mind associates action with mental sharpness, creating a habitual connection that combats mental fog proactively. Incorporating deliberate, repeated physical engagement throughout the day ensures that cognitive heaviness is addressed continuously, improving both thinking and emotional stability. Consistent daily movement builds long-term resilience. The mind learns that attention, energy, and clarity are influenced by physical action. Each repetition reinforces neural pathways, linking activity with mental readiness. Mental fog is disrupted before it becomes overwhelming, attention stabilizes, and the brain develops a reliable pattern for responding to inertia and cognitive stagnation. By engaging in repeated physical action, anchoring attention in the body, pairing movement with sensory awareness, and integrating light exercise into daily routines, the mind becomes consistently alert. Mental fog is no longer a barrier but a signal to act. Repetition establishes a reliable system for clearing stagnation, restoring clarity, and maintaining cognitive function, empowering the individual to face daily life with mental and emotional energy.
Chapter 5. Repair sleep. Eating sunlight to stabilize your mood. Sleep, nutrition, and sunlight are foundational elements that shape mood, energy, and mental clarity. When these three elements are out of balance, the mind becomes more vulnerable to depression, anxiety, and cognitive fatigue. Repairing them is not about drastic changes overnight. It is about consistent, deliberate, daily adjustments that stabilize emotional and cognitive function. Sleep provides the brain with a chance to process experiences and reset neural pathways. Eating regulates blood sugar, energy, and neurotransmitter production, which directly affect mood. Sunlight controls circadian rhythms, hormone production, and alertness. Combined, these three elements create a framework for emotional stability and mental resilience. Sleep begins with consistency. Going to bed and waking up at the same time each day signals the body that there is structure, which reduces stress and prepares the mind for restorative processes. Irregular sleep patterns confuse the brain and amplify depressive symptoms. Repetition strengthens internal rhythms, creating predictability that supports mood stabilization. Even if sleep is initially short, maintaining consistent timing teaches the mind and body that recovery is a priority. Creating a pre-sleep routine enhances rest quality. Simple actions repeated nightly, dim lighting, limiting screen exposure, stretching, or drinking water, send cues to the nervous system that it is time to unwind. These cues condition the mind to transition from alertness to calmness. Over time, the repeated ritual reduces sleep latency, improves depth of rest, and allows emotional regulation to occur more effectively. Nutrition affects mood more than most people realize. Regular meals with balanced nutrients provide steady energy, stabilize blood sugar, and support neurotransmitter function. Skipping meals or consuming excessive sugar leads to mood swings, fatigue, and cognitive fog. Repeatedly choosing balanced meals trains the body and mind to operate at a more consistent level, which reduces emotional instability and impulsive thinking. Hydration is a critical yet often overlooked component. Water supports cognitive processing, hormone transport, and cellular function. Even mild dehydration can lead to irritability, poor concentration, and fatigue. Developing the habit of drinking water throughout the day reinforces the mind-body connection and supports mood stabilization. Repetition ensures hydration becomes automatic rather than sporadic, preventing preventable dips in mental energy. Sunlight exposure resets circadian rhythms, regulates hormone production, and supports alertness.
Daily exposure for at least a few minutes, whether walking outside, sitting near a window, or stretching in natural light, signals to the brain that it is daytime, which improves sleep quality and emotional regulation. Repeating sunlight exposure consistently strengthens the mind's internal clock, reduces fatigue, and increases resilience to stress. Evening routines should limit stimulants. Caffeine, intense exercise, and bright screens too close to bedtime interfere with sleep quality and brain recovery. Repeatedly establishing an environment conducive to rest supports neurotransmitter balance and emotional stability. Over time, the mind associates evening habits with calmness and prepares for restorative sleep naturally. Eating with awareness stabilizes both energy and mood. Paying attention to portion sizes, nutrient content, and timing allows the body to process food efficiently. Repeatedly choosing whole foods rich in protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates sustains energy levels throughout the day. The mind responds positively when the body receives predictable, supportive fuel, reducing irritability, mental fatigue, and negative thinking. Regular meal timing strengthens metabolic and emotional balance. Eating at consistent intervals prevents blood sugar spikes and crashes, which can intensify mood swings. Repetition trains the body to anticipate energy replenishment, reducing stress and anxiety caused by unpredictability. Structured nutrition creates a sense of control and reliability in daily life, reinforcing emotional stability. Sunlight exposure also enhances vitamin D production, which plays a critical role in mood regulation. Low vitamin D is linked to fatigue, irritability, and depressive symptoms. Daily repeated sunlight not only improves hormonal balance, but also provides a natural cue for activity and alertness. Integrating exposure into routine tasks ensures consistency without creating additional stress. Physical activity interacts with sleep, eating, and sunlight. Moderate movement in daylight improves sleep quality, enhances appetite regulation, and reinforces energy cycles. The repeated practice of moving daily under natural light strengthens circadian alignment and creates feedback loops that stabilize mood and cognition. Small, consistent steps compound into greater physiological and emotional benefits. Mindful consumption supports emotional health. Observing how foods, sleep patterns, and sunlight exposure influence feelings allows for informed adjustment. Recording responses over days highlights patterns that help the mind and body adapt for optimal stability. Repetition of this self-monitoring builds awareness, allowing proactive management of mood and energy rather than reactive coping. Even brief naps can support mood if done intentionally. Short, consistent daytime rests of 10 to 20 minutes prevent excessive fatigue without disrupting nighttime sleep. Repetition reinforces the mind's recognition of restorative pauses, ensuring energy remains balanced throughout the day. Over time, these micro-rests enhance alertness, focus, and emotional regulation. Sleep environment is critical. Keeping the bedroom dark, quiet, and cool enhances rest. Repeating environmental preparation every night conditions the mind and body to enter deep sleep more efficiently. Over time, the brain anticipates restorative rest, which stabilizes emotional processing and reduces vulnerability to stressors. Avoiding late-night snacking supports both sleep quality and mood. Heavy or sugary foods close to bedtime interfere with digestion and neural rest cycle. Establishing a repeated habit of finishing meals earlier in the evening reinforces the natural rhythm of activity and rest. The body and mind adjust predictably, resulting in smoother transitions into restorative sleep. Morning sunlight and movement together strengthen energy cycle. Stretching, walking or gentle exercise shortly after waking while exposed to natural light activates hormonal responses that improve focus, attention, and emotional resilience. Daily repetition reinforces the mind's expectation of activity upon waking, which reduces sluggishness and mental fatigue. Meal preparation in advance supports consistency. Planning and preparing meals reduces impulsive eating, stabilizes energy intake, and ensures balanced nutrition. Repeating this practice, daily or weekly, builds a reliable routine that the mind associates with predictability and security, reducing stress associated with hunger or poor choices. Sleep hygiene includes consistent bedtime rituals that signal the nervous system to relax. Activities like gentle stretching, reading factual material, or meditative breathing, repeated nightly, provide cues for the brain to transition into restorative sleep. These repeated actions reinforce patterns that support deep rest and mental balance. Awareness of light exposure after sunset is essential. Bright artificial lights disrupt melatonin production and interfere with sleep cycles. Limiting exposure to bright lights in the evening and consistently using dim lighting allows the mind and body to prepare naturally for rest. Daily repetition reinforces biological rhythms that support mood and energy regulation. Hydration timing affects sleep and alertness. Drinking adequate water throughout the day, but limiting excess fluids immediately before bed, prevents sleep interruptions while maintaining overall hydration. Repeating proper hydration habits ensures the brain and body function optimally, supporting stable mood and mental clarity. Integrating short outdoor breaks during the day refreshes energy, reinforces natural light exposure, and supports mood stabilization. Repeatedly stepping outside even briefly allows the mind to reset, improves attentional focus, and enhances overall cognitive function. Daily engagement creates a rhythm that balances mental and physical states. Consistent nutrient intake supports neurotransmitter synthesis. Amino acids from protein, omega-3 fatty acids, and minerals like magnesium influence serotonin and dopamine levels. By repeating nutrient-rich choices daily, the mind receives stable chemical support for mood regulation. Over time, this repetition produces more consistent emotional responses and reduced vulnerability to depressive symptoms. Limiting processed foods stabilizes blood sugar and energy. Repeatedly choosing whole, unprocessed options prevents rapid highs and lows in glucose levels, which affect both cognitive function and mood. Daily adherence builds resilience, reduces irritability, and enhances mental clarity. Combining sleep, nutrition, and sunlight practices reinforces compounding benefits. A consistent bedtime routine, balanced meals, and daily sunlight exposure interact to regulate hormones, neurotransmitters, and circadian rhythm. Repetition ensures the brain internalizes these signals, producing predictable states of alertness, calmness, and emotional stability. Tracking sleep quality, meal timing, and sunlight exposure highlights patterns and informs adjustment. Recording these factors daily creates a feedback loop that allows intentional intervention when disruptions occur. Repeated monitoring strengthens awareness, empowers decision-making, and ensures continuous optimization of mood and cognitive function. Intentional evening reflection reduces mental activity before sleep. Reviewing the day, noting achievements, and acknowledging emotions provides closure without overactivation. Repetition of this reflection trains the mind to release concerns at night, improving rest and emotional balance. Daily integration of small adjustments builds resilience over time. Consistent sleep schedules, meal routines, and sunlight exposure compound into predictable rhythms that support emotional regulation. The mind and body learn to anticipate patterns, reducing stress, increasing focus, and improving mood stability.
Even incremental changes yield measurable improvement. Shifting bedtime slightly earlier, adding 5 minutes of sunlight exposure, or adjusting meal content gradually strengthens the system without overwhelming the mind. Repeating small improvements daily ensures sustainable progress and reinforces habit formation. Emotional regulation improves as physiological stability is restored. Consistency in sleep, nutrition, and sunlight exposure reduces irritability, improves focus, and enhances overall cognitive capacity. Daily repeated attention to these elements builds a foundation of resilience that buffers the mind against stresses and mood fluctuations. Repairing sleep, eating, and sunlight is a deliberate, ongoing process. Daily repetition reinforces biological rhythms, optimizes neurotransmitter balance, and stabilizes emotional responses. Over time, the mind and body develop predictable, harmonious cycles that support energy, clarity, and mood. By prioritizing these foundational elements consistently, mental health becomes more manageable, resilience grows, and the capacity to engage fully in life strengthens steadily. Each repeated action compounds, creating stability in cognition, emotion, and physical readiness. Sleep restores, eating nourishes, and sunlight signals activity and alertness. By embedding these practices into daily life, the mind gains tools for consistent balance. Mental clarity, energy, and mood stability become predictable outcomes rather than uncertain states. The combination of sleep, nutrition, and sunlight forms a reliable framework for supporting emotional health and cognitive function over time. By committing to these daily adjustments, small yet deliberate, the mind gradually becomes more resilient. Sleep cycles regulate, energy levels stabilize, and emotional responses are tempered. Repeated practice creates automatic patterns that reinforce mental stability and mood regulation. Over weeks and months, these foundations transform emotional experience, enhance clarity, and strengthen the mind's capacity to navigate challenges effectively.
Chapter 6. Prove to yourself you can finish small things. Completing small tasks is the foundation for building confidence, discipline, and momentum in life. When the mind is weighed down by uncertainty or low motivation, finishing small things becomes proof that action is possible and progress is attainable. The act of completing even minor objectives signals to the brain that effort yields results. This reinforces a sense of capability, which is essential for overcoming inertia, mental fatigue, and self-doubt. Each small success compounds into motivation that fuels larger accomplishments. Start with tasks that are genuinely achievable within minutes. These are not overwhelming responsibilities or complex projects. Making your bed, washing a dish, responding to a single email, or tidying a corner of your room are examples. These actions are small, concrete, and immediately satisfying. Repetition of completing these minor tasks strengthens the mind's perception of capability. Over time, the repeated experience of finishing small tasks shifts the brain from hesitation to action. Breaking tasks into the smallest possible steps increases the likelihood of completion. Even when a project feels enormous, identifying one actionable element creates a starting point. For example, if cleaning the entire kitchen feels impossible, focus on one countertop or one shelf. Completing this element proves progress is possible and reduces mental resistance. Each small completion builds confidence and encourages the next step without overloading the mind. Tracking completed tasks reinforces progress visually. Writing down each finished task, checking items off a list, or maintaining a daily journal creates tangible evidence of accomplishment. The mind responds positively to this record. Repeated observation of completed tasks generates a sense of competence and satisfaction that reinforces the habit of finishing. Over time, the brain associates effort with measurable achievement. Time-limited tasks are especially effective. Setting a short, defined period, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, creates urgency and focus. The mind is less likely to overthink or procrastinate. Completing the task within the allotted time reinforces the ability to act decisively. Repetition of this technique trains the brain to prioritize action over hesitation, gradually increasing confidence in the ability to finish larger projects. Celebrating small victories strengthens mental reinforcement. Acknowledging the completion of even minor tasks without exaggeration reinforces the connection between effort and result. These repeated moments of recognition help the mind internalize the pattern of capability. Over time, this positive feedback loop strengthens self-belief and reduces fear of failure. Consistency is more important than size. Daily completion of small tasks, repeated over weeks, accumulates into significant progress. The mind learns that action leads to results. Each repeated success, no matter how minor, contributes to a growing reservoir of confidence. The repetition itself trains discipline and resilience, reinforcing the habit of finishing what is started. Avoid waiting for motivation. Motivation is unreliable and fluctuates. Instead, commit to action regardless of how you feel. Completing a small task while unmotivated trains the mind to value action over mood. Repeated practice teaches that progress is not contingent on emotion, but on consistent behavior. This reliability builds self-trust and reduces procrastination. Accountability enhances task completion. Sharing small objectives with a trusted friend or partner increases the likelihood of finishing them. Verbalizing the intention creates commitment, and repeated follow-through strengthens integrity and self-respect. The mind internalizes the pattern that intentions can be trusted when paired with action. Over time, this repetition reinforces a dependable approach to responsibility. Start the day with achievable tasks. Completing minor actions in the morning establishes momentum that carries through the day. Early successes create a positive feedback loop, increasing energy and clarity for subsequent tasks. Repetition of this routine trains the brain to associate completion with productivity, improving both mood and focus consistently. Set micro goals within larger projects. Instead of aiming to finish an entire report, commit to writing one paragraph. Instead of cleaning the whole room, focus on one corner. Completing these micro goals repeatedly demonstrates the ability to act and finish. Each small proof of capability reduces mental resistance to larger undertakings. Visual cues reinforce completion. Keeping notes, reminders, or physical markers of progress helps maintain focus and provides evidence of achievement. Each time a task is completed, removing or marking it signals tangible progress. Repetition of this visual reinforcement strengthens the psychological association between action and result. Avoid multitasking during small completion. Focus entirely on one task at a time to experience the satisfaction of finishing. Divided attention reduces the feeling of accomplishment. Repeated practice of single task completion increases efficiency and reinforces confidence in the ability to see things through. Reflection after completion enhances understanding of capability. Taking a moment to notice what was finished, how it felt, and what was learned creates mental reinforcement. Each reflection strengthens awareness of personal efficacy, and repeated reflection trains the mind to recognize competence in real time. Pairing small tasks with routines increases consistency. Integrating minor actions into daily habits ensures repetition without requiring excessive motivation. For example, brushing teeth can include a short tidying task or a brief planning note. Repetition within routine stabilizes behavior and reinforces the habit of completion. Rewarding oneself after completing tasks strengthens reinforcement. Rewards do not need to be extravagant. Even a small acknowledgement, a moment of pause, or mental affirmation reinforces behavior. Repeated association of completion with positive feedback trains the brain to seek fulfillment through action.
not procrastination. Gradually increase task complexity as confidence grows. After consistently finishing small tasks, challenge yourself with slightly larger objectives. This repeated incremental approach builds skill, discipline, and resilience without overwhelming the mind. Each successive level of accomplishment demonstrates capability and strengthens self-belief. Documenting small wins creates a tangible record of progress. Maintaining a log of completed actions highlights patterns, growth, and consistency. Repeatedly reviewing this record reinforces confidence, tracks improvement, and provides motivation during periods of low energy or doubt. Use visual or physical closure to signal task completion. Closing a notebook, wiping a counter, or organizing items at the end of a task provides a sensory cue that the task is finished. Repeatedly pairing action with closure trains the mind to recognize completion clearly, strengthening the habit over time. Consistency in finishing small things trains mental stamina. Daily repetition, even of minor achievements, strengthens persistence, attention, and determination. Over time, the mind internalizes that starting tasks inevitably leads to completion, reducing anxiety and fear associated with unfinished work. Avoid perfectionism in small tasks. Striving for flawless execution can prevent completion entirely. Focus instead on finishing the task to a satisfactory standard. Repeated practice of completion over perfection reinforces the mindset that progress matters more than unattainable ideals. This reduces procrastination and builds confidence. Pair task completion with planning. After finishing a small action, identify the next achievable step. This repeated cycle of action, followed by planning, creates momentum and structure. The mind learns that one completed step naturally leads to the next, reducing overwhelm and increasing productivity. Time boxing tasks enhances focus and completion. Allocating a fixed period to finish a specific action reduces overthinking and encourages decisive behavior. Repeated application trains the mind to prioritize action within constraints, increasing efficiency and reinforcing capability. Morning and evening task reviews provide structure and proof of progress. Reviewing what was finished and identifying what remains enhances clarity. Repeated daily reflection creates a reliable system for measuring growth, ensuring that the mind recognizes patterns of capability and consistency. Account for distractions strategically. Minimize interruptions when completing small tasks. Repeated practice in focused conditions strengthens attention span, improves execution, and reinforces the habit of finish. Over time, the mind develops resilience to environmental challenges while maintaining productivity. Use incremental deadlines for small actions. Setting specific, repeated time targets encourages urgency and clarity. Completing tasks within these intervals reinforces discipline and demonstrates that the mind can achieve objectives reliably, even under pressure. Celebrate routine achievements to normalize success. Recognizing consistent task completion, no matter the scale, builds confidence, reduces doubt, and reinforces a mindset of capability. Daily repetition of acknowledgement solidifies belief in personal competence. Pair action with accountability tool. Using checklists, planners, or apps reinforces repeated completion habits. Tracking progress consistently provides visual confirmation of success, strengthens reliability, and encourages continued momentum. Start with personal, meaningful tasks. Completing actions that matter to your values increases engagement, satisfaction, and motivation. Repetition of finishing personally significant items reinforces a sense of purpose, strengthens commitment, and enhances confidence in the ability to act. Leverage small successes to tackle larger challenges. Repeated demonstration of capability in minor tasks gradually conditions the mind to approach bigger projects with confidence. Each completed small action
becomes evidence that larger objectives are achievable. Maintain consistency across environments. Practicing task completion at home, work, and in social contexts. Repetition in diverse settings ensures the brain generalizes the skill, strengthening confidence and capability across circumstances. Use self-verification techniques. Remind yourself of past successes whenever completing new tasks. Repeatedly connecting current effort to previous accomplishments reinforces belief in personal capability and reduces hesitation. Combine sensory engagement with completion. Notice physical sensations, visual cues, or auditory feedback while finishing tasks. Repeated sensory association strengthens recognition of accomplishment and reinforces motivation for continued action. Teach the mind through structured repetition. Completing small actions daily trains neural pathways to favor action, reduce procrastination, and build persistence. Over time, the mind anticipates success and approaches challenges with confidence. Recognize emotional shifts from completion. Repeatedly observing improvements in mood, satisfaction, or confidence after finishing tasks reinforces the value of action. Emotional feedback consolidates the habit and strengthens resilience against doubt. Gradually integrate complexity while maintaining completion. Layering additional elements onto established habits of finishing small actions builds skill, endurance, and self-efficacy. Repetition across these increasingly challenging scenarios reinforces belief in competence. Documenting failures and successes together strengthens learning. Recording incomplete tasks alongside finished ones provides perspective. Repeated reflection highlights patterns, informs adjustments, and reinforces the value of consistent completion over perfection. Daily engagement in finishing small things creates long-term momentum. Repetition strengthens self-discipline, builds confidence, and cultivates reliability. The mind internalizes that effort produces tangible results, establishing a foundation for tackling increasingly significant challenges. Completion is a skill cultivated through persistent practice. Each small task finished builds evidence that action is possible. Repetition across days, weeks, and months accumulates into a reliable sense of capability, mental resilience, and self-trust that empowers broader life achievement. By proving to yourself that small actions can be finished, the mind becomes trained to act decisively, maintain focus, and build momentum. Daily repeated practice of completing minor tasks forms the foundation for larger successes, creating confidence, clarity, and sustained motivation that transforms life step by step.
Chapter 7. Say out loud what you usually hide inside. Holding emotions inside creates weight that the mind carries silently. Thoughts, fears, and frustrations that remain unspoken accumulate and interfere with clarity, energy, and emotional stability. Saying out loud what is usually hidden releases tension, provides perspective, and establishes a sense of presence in reality. The act of verbal expression trains the mind to acknowledge feelings without judgment and teaches emotional responsibility. Speaking thoughts transforms internal turbulence into structured communication, making challenges manageable rather than overwhelming. Begin by identifying specific emotions or thoughts that are consistently hidden. This requires honesty with oneself. Awareness of what is held inside is the first step toward releasing it. Labeling these thoughts aloud, such as naming anxiety, sadness, or frustration, gives them form and reduces the abstract burden. Repetition of this process daily strengthens emotional recognition and diminishes the intensity of hidden feelings. Start in a private, safe environment. Speaking openly requires security and minimal fear of judgment. Saying your thoughts quietly to yourself, into a mirror, or in a journal read aloud, allows for practice without external pressure. Repeated engagement in this practice builds confidence in expression and establishes a foundation for speaking openly in other contexts. Voice clarifies thought patterns. Many internal thoughts are vague or cyclical. Saying them aloud organizes them logically and makes connections clear. Repetition of vocalization allows the brain to structure information it previously processed haphazardly. Over time, verbal articulation reduces mental clutter, increases clarity, and strengthens self-understanding. Emotional release occurs naturally when words leave the mind. The act of vocalizing frustration, fear, or sadness shifts energy from passive containment to active processing. Repeating this expression consistently allows the nervous system to discharge tension safely, reducing cumulative stress that contributes to depression or mental stagnation. Use descriptive language when expressing internal state, naming the specifics of what is felt, whether it is heaviness, tension, worry, or doubt, enhances understanding. Repetition of detailed expression helps the mind differentiate between overlapping emotions, allowing accurate assessment and reducing ambiguity that can intensify distress. Voice volume and tone influence processing. Speaking softly, steadily, or with deliberate emphasis impacts how thoughts are received internally. Repeated experimentation with volume and inflection creates awareness of how physical expression affects emotional experience. This repeated practice strengthens connection between mind, body, and emotion. Observing physical reactions while speaking reveals internal dynamics. Muscles may tense, posture may shift, and breathing patterns change in response to expressing hidden feelings. Repetition of this observation trains the mind to recognize bodily signals associated with unspoken thoughts. Awareness of these cues supports emotional regulation and prevents unnoticed escalation of stress. Recording voice provides objective reflection. Listening back to spoken thoughts offers perspective, clarity, and self-recognition. Repeatedly reviewing these recordings builds insight into recurring patterns, hidden biases, and emotional tendencies. The brain gradually learns to interpret previously unexamined internal experiences more accurately. Verbalizing goals alongside emotions reinforces accountability. Speaking intentions, fears about failure, or doubts out loud solidifies commitment and clarifies next steps. Repetition of vocalizing both desires and obstacles trains the mind to address challenges proactively rather than allowing hesitation to persist. Practice expression without seeking external validation. The primary purpose is internal release and clarity. Repeating verbalization independently teaches self-reliance in managing emotions. Over time, the mind becomes accustomed to acknowledging internal experiences without dependency on others for approval or understanding. Pair vocalization with breathing techniques. Slow, controlled breaths enhance focus, stabilize emotion, and support clarity in expression. Repetition of combined speech and breath improves nervous system regulation and creates a consistent tool for reducing internal tension. Address both positive and negative thoughts. Speaking only frustrations or fears can skew perspective. Repeatedly acknowledging gratitude, achievements, or positive emotions strengthens balance and reinforces recognition of full internal experience. The mind learns to integrate complexity rather than focus exclusively on challenges. Use present tense when articulating feelings. Saying "I feel anxious" rather than "I felt anxious" anchors the mind in current experience. Repeated practice of present-focused verbalization increases awareness, reduces rumination, and strengthens emotional clarity. Articulate internal conflicts systematically. Breaking down complex emotional experiences into smaller, vocalized components creates structure.
Repeating this process trains the brain to separate overlapping thoughts and respond rationally rather than reactively. The mind gains control and clarity through consistent practice. Engage in reflective questioning aloud, asking, "Why do I feel this way?" or "What triggered this emotion?" When speaking internally encourages exploration. Repeating inquiry alongside vocal expression fosters self-discovery, reduces automatic reaction patterns, and strengthens understanding of emotional processes. Vocal expression prepares the mind for external communication. Regularly practicing articulating internal states enhances the ability to converse honestly with others. Repetition builds skill in expressing complex emotions clearly and reduces fear of judgment, fostering healthier interpersonal relationships. Combine movement with vocalization. Standing, pacing, or gesturing while speaking intensifies engagement and reinforces mind-body integration. Repeated practice of paired motion and speech improves cognitive processing and emotional release. The mind becomes accustomed to dynamic expression as a natural mechanism for clarity. Use visualization while speaking. Picture the thought or emotion as you articulate it. Repetition of linking imagery with speech strengthens memory, recognition, and processing of internal experiences. This practice allows the mind to anchor abstract emotions into tangible understanding. Set aside regular times for verbal expression. Daily repetition creates expectation and normalizes emotional release. The mind learns that reflection and articulation are routine, reducing resistance and preventing accumulation of unspoken thought. Consistent practice fosters habitual clarity and emotional stability. Observe shifts in mood during vocalization. Noticing changes in tension, lightness, or clarity reinforces understanding of internal processing. Repeating these observations establishes a feedback loop that teaches the mind how expression directly affects emotional state. Pair vocalization with journaling. Writing and then reading aloud amplifies processing and reinforces retention. Repetition of this dual method strengthens comprehension of internal experiences and provides tangible records for reflection. Over time, the brain internalizes patterns and responses efficiently. Express fears and doubts openly. Speaking these thoughts reduces internal amplification and obsessive rumination. Repeated articulation conditions the mind to face discomfort rather than hide from it, decreasing the power of fear over behavior. Practice articulating unresolved experiences. Situations that remain mentally or emotionally unprocessed often contribute to depression. Speaking about them repeatedly allows structured integration, turning chaos into understandable information for the mind to manage. Vocalize intentions for problem solving. Saying aloud potential actions clarifies decision-making. Repeated practice reinforces strategic thinking, reduces hesitation, and encourages proactive engagement with challenges. The mind learns to link articulation with action consistently. Observe reactions to speaking aloud. Noticing relief, tension reduction, or clarity reinforces the utility of vocal expression. Repetition of these observations strengthens confidence in the method and encourages habitual practice. Use verbal rehearsal for difficult conversation. Speaking out fears, requests, or grievances aloud prepares the mind and reduces anxiety before engaging with others. Repeated rehearsal improves communication, reduces stress, and strengthens emotional regulation. Combine expression with sensory awareness. Notice voice resonance, breathing patterns, and posture while speaking thoughts. Repetition reinforces integration of mind, body, and emotion, enhancing overall clarity and stability. Encourage honesty in expression. Avoid filtering thoughts excessively. Repetition of authentic verbalization trains the mind to value truth over suppression,
creating mental space for processing and problem-solving. Articulate internal successes as well as struggle. Recognizing achievements aloud balances perspective, strengthens confidence, and reinforces capability. Repeated acknowledgement of positive outcomes builds resilience and prevents skewed focus on negativity. Use dialogue with yourself to explore complexity. Speaking both sides of internal conflict aloud allows the mind to organize competing priorities and emotions. Repetition improves decision-making, insight, and emotional regulation. Integrate verbal expression into daily transition. Speaking thoughts aloud when shifting tasks or routines signals focus and preparation. Repeated application strengthens mental alertness, reduces stress, and enhances emotional clarity. Practice moderation in vocalization. Short, consistent sessions are often more effective than prolonged speaking that leads to fatigue. Repetition maintains sustainability, ensuring the mind continues to benefit without overwhelm. Reinforce vocalization with affirmation. After expressing a difficulty or fear, stating a positive or constructive phrase strengthens perspective and encourages adaptive thinking. Repeated pairing conditions the mind to integrate challenges with constructive solutions. Share selective expression with trusted individuals gradually. Once comfortable with private practice, verbalizing internal thoughts to safe listeners builds social confidence. Repetition across contexts strengthens the habit and expands emotional resilience. Evaluate changes over time. Noticing reduced anxiety, improved clarity, or increased confidence after consistent verbal expression reinforces the efficacy of the practice. Repetition solidifies the mind's recognition of benefit and encourages continuation. Vocalizing what is hidden strengthens authenticity. Regular practice teaches the mind that honesty is safe, manageable, and productive. Each repetition builds resilience, self-understanding, and emotional control, transforming internal chaos into structured clarity. Daily repeated articulation of thoughts and emotions trains the brain to process experiences efficiently. Speaking aloud converts internal noise into organized understanding, reduces hidden tension, and creates a reliable tool for emotional stability. Over time, this practice fosters clarity, confidence, and adaptive mental strength, enabling more deliberate, present, and effective engagement with life.
Chapter 8. Choose presence with people instead of silent withdrawal. Withdrawing silently from others may feel safe in moments of struggle, but it reinforces isolation, loneliness, and stagnation. Choosing presence with people is a deliberate act of engagement that strengthens emotional resilience, fosters connection, and builds mental clarity. Human interaction provides perspective, support, and energy that the mind cannot generate in isolation. Being present is not about pretending to feel okay or masking emotions. It is about consciously participating in shared experience while maintaining awareness of internal states. Repeatedly choosing presence trains the brain to navigate discomfort without retreating, which strengthens confidence and emotional flexibility. Start by identifying trusted individuals. Presence is most effective when shared with people who create safety rather than judgment. Engaging with supportive friends, family, or colleagues provides space for authentic interaction. Repeated engagement with trusted people reinforces a sense of belonging and gradually reduces the habit of silent withdrawal. Focus on active listening. Being present means paying attention to others without planning responses while they speak. Observing their tone, facial expressions, and gestures fosters genuine engagement. Repetition of active listening builds empathy, awareness, and connection. Over time, the mind learns that listening deeply enhances relationships and emotional stability. Begin with small interactions. Even brief conversations greetings or check-ins strengthen the habit of presence. Consistent, repeated engagement gradually builds confidence, reduces social anxiety, and increases comfort in larger or more emotionally complex interactions. Small actions compound into meaningful relational skills. Notice internal resistance without judgment. The urge to withdraw often arises from discomfort, fear, or fatigue. Recognizing this impulse and choosing to remain present reinforces self-control and deliberate behavior. Repeating this practice trains the mind to tolerate discomfort and respond intentionally rather than reactively. Maintain body awareness while interacting. Posture, eye contact, and facial expressions signal engagement both to yourself and others. Repeatedly aligning body language with conscious presence reinforces connection and helps the brain internalize the habit of active participation. Physical cues strengthen mental focus and social clarity. Use verbal contribution to anchor presence. Even simple remarks, questions, or confirmations establish participation. Repeating these verbal contributions in daily interactions strengthens confidence, reduces anxiety about speaking, and trains the mind to assert itself without withdrawing. Each small act of expression compounds into greater comfort and skill. Practice empathy consciously. Seek to understand others' emotions and perspectives while remaining aware of your own feelings. Repetition of empathic engagement strengthens relational intelligence and enhances the ability to respond effectively in social context. Empathy reinforces trust and creates emotional safety in interactions. Observe the emotional impact of presence. Notice shifts in mood, energy, or mental clarity when engaging with others. Repeated observation reinforces understanding of the benefits of connection and encourages continued participation. The brain begins to anticipate positive outcomes from interaction rather than avoidance. Set boundaries while remaining present. Choosing presence does not require overextension or neglect of personal needs. Clearly communicating limits while participating consistently strengthens self-respect and prevents emotional depletion. Repetition trains the mind to balance engagement with self-care. Incorporate non-verbal acknowledgement. Nods, smiles, and attentive gestures convey presence without overwhelming verbal participation. Repeated use reinforces the habit of engagement while supporting effective social signaling. Over time, these small cues enhance perception, responsiveness, and relational trust. Rotate attention between self and others. Being present requires awareness of your own mental state while attending to the other person. Repeated practice of balancing attention trains the mind to maintain engagement without losing self-awareness. This skill reduces over-identification with others' emotions and prevents emotional exhaustion. Gradually increase exposure to larger social settings. After practicing presence in safe, small context, participate in group activities, meetings, or gatherings. Repetition of structured social engagement builds confidence, reduces fear of judgment, and reinforces the brain's capacity for sustained interaction. Combine presence with reflective debriefing. After interactions, review emotional responses, successes, and challenges. Repetition of this reflection enhances learning, identifies patterns, and strengthens adaptive social strategy. The mind becomes more aware of both internal and external cues that influence connection. Integrate physical activity with social engagement. Walking, exercising, or performing tasks together increases shared experience and reinforces connection. Repetition of joint activity strengthens social bonds and provides natural opportunities for conversation and presence. Practice patience with yourself. Choosing presence may initially feel exhausting or uncomfortable. Allow gradual adjustment and repeated practice to build endurance. The mind adapts to sustained engagement over time, reducing the compulsion for withdrawal.
Notice benefits of reciprocal support. Engaging with others allows sharing burdens, receiving feedback and generating energy that cannot be self-produced alone. Repeated experience of mutual support reinforces the habit of presence and reduces reliance on isolation as a coping mechanism. Engage in curiosity-driven conversation. Ask questions and explore others' experiences. Repetition of curious inquiry encourages active listening, strengthens relationships and provides meaningful perspective. Curiosity enhances engagement and reduces the mind's tendency to retreat into silence. Recognize patterns of withdrawal triggers. Observing what situations, moods or thoughts lead to silent withdrawal allows proactive choice. Repeated recognition of triggers strengthens self-awareness and supports intentional engagement rather than habitual retreat. The mind becomes trained to respond adaptively rather than reactive. Use mindfulness techniques to maintain attention. Focusing on the present moment while interacting prevents distraction and ruminative thoughts. Repetition of mindfulness in social settings improves clarity, emotional balance and the quality of presence. Awareness of both internal and external stimuli becomes habitual. Celebrate small successes in engagement, noticing progress in speaking up, listening attentively, or participating in group activity reinforces the behavior. Repeated acknowledgement of these micro-successes strengthens confidence and motivates continued practice of presence over withdrawal. Incorporate structured conversation opportunities. Planning brief check-ins, collaborative tasks or shared activities creates predictable context for presence. Repetition of structured engagement reduces anxiety, builds familiarity, and strengthens the habit of active participation. Repetition reinforces self-awareness and provides internal stability during social engagement. This internal clarity prevents overwhelm and supports sustained presence. Use eye contact intention. Sustained, gentle eye contact anchors attention, communicates engagement, and strengthens relational trust. Repeated practice develops comfort with this form of nonverbal connection, enhancing the overall sense of presence. Pair presence with gratitude. Noticing the value of interaction, appreciating others' contributions, and acknowledging shared moments reinforces positive associations with social engagement. Repetition strengthens motivation to remain connected rather than withdraw. Engage in reflective listening. Paraphrasing or summarizing what others say confirms attention and reinforces presence. Repeated application builds relational clarity and strengthens mutual understanding, reinforcing the habit of active participation. Awareness of self-critical or anxious thoughts while interacting allows conscious redirection toward attention on the other person. Repeated monitoring strengthens the mind's ability to maintain focus and prevent withdrawal tendencies. Schedule regular social interaction. Consistency builds habit and reduces the tendency to avoid connection. Repetition of engagement ensures the mind becomes accustomed to presence as a default response, strengthening resilience and social competence. Practice sharing small personal experiences. Opening up about minor details builds comfort and trust incrementally. Repeated sharing develops confidence in expressing oneself, reducing fear and increasing willingness to remain present in meaningful interactions. Combine presence with supportive touch or gestures when appropriate. A handshake, pat on the back or gentle acknowledgement reinforces connection and strengthens engagement. Repetition of these behaviors trains the brain to associate physical cues with social bonding and positive emotion. Notice energy flow during interaction. Recognize moments of engagement, attentiveness and connection. Repeated awareness trains the mind to detect productive social dynamics and maintain presence, even during subtle interactions. Engage in problem solving
or collaborative tasks. Participating actively in joint efforts strengthens purpose, focus, and relational connection. Repetition of collaborative engagement trains the mind to prioritize presence while contributing meaningfully. Practice verbal affirmation of others' contribution. Acknowledging input, effort, or perspective reinforces shared experience. Repeated use of affirmation encourages reciprocal engagement and fosters stronger relationships, reducing the likelihood of silent withdrawal. Observe emotional resilience as practice continues. Note improvements in mood, energy, and confidence during social engagement. Repetition of observation reinforces awareness of progress, motivating sustained practice of presence over avoidance. Integrate humor appropriately. Sharing light moments while present reinforces connection and comfort. Repeated incorporation of humor strengthens bonds and reduces the tension that often triggers withdrawal. Engage in reflective questioning about social patterns, asking what worked, what felt uncomfortable, and what can improve encourages self-directed learning. Repetition strengthens adaptive behavior and prevents defaulting to silent withdrawal. Balance speaking and listening. Distributing attention evenly between expressing yourself and attending to others reinforces relational equilibrium. Repeatedly practicing this balance strengthens conversational skill and reduces anxiety that may lead to retreat. Observe physiological signals of engagement. Breathing, heart rate, and muscle tension indicate comfort or discomfort levels. Repeated attention allows conscious adjustment, supporting sustained presence in social contexts. Pair presence with personal values. Focus on intentions like support, understanding, or connection, rather than judgment or performance. Repetition of value-driven interaction strengthens authenticity and reinforces meaningful engagement. Gradually expand social comfort zones. Increase duration, frequency, or complexity of interaction. Repeatedly challenging the mind strengthens resilience, reduces automatic withdrawal, and builds confidence in diverse social settings. Document experiences of presence, reflecting on what interactions were successful, challenging, or illuminating, reinforces learning. Repeated documentation strengthens awareness of growth, patterns, and strategies for maintaining engagement. Celebrate consistency in showing up. Recognize that repeatedly choosing presence, even during discomfort, represents effort and resilience. Repetition of acknowledgement reinforces the habit, builds confidence, and strengthens mental and emotional stability. Daily practice of presence transforms habitual withdrawal into conscious engagement. Repetition strengthens relational skill, emotional resilience, and self-awareness. Over time, the mind internalizes that interaction is manageable, rewarding, and enriching, producing confidence, clarity, and sustainable connection in both social and personal contexts.
Chapter 9. Define limits that keep your mind from overload. The mind has a limited capacity to process information, emotions, and tasks at any given time. Without clear boundaries, it becomes overwhelmed, leading to stress, fatigue, and decreased ability to function effectively. Defining limits is not a restriction of potential, but a strategic choice to protect mental clarity, energy, and emotional stability. Setting boundaries allows the mind to prioritize what matters, focus on achievable objectives, and maintain a sustainable pace in daily life. Repeatedly practicing these limits trains the brain to recognize when input is too much and respond proactively rather than reactively. Start by identifying sources of mental overload. Observe patterns in your day that cause stress, fatigue, or distraction. This could include excessive social media use, multitasking, prolonged work hours, or exposure to negative influences. Awareness is the first step in establishing boundaries. Repeating this identification daily allows the mind to map triggers and develop conscious responses rather than defaulting to overwhelm. Set time-based limits for activities that demand mental energy. Allocate specific periods for work, leisure, social engagement and rest. Repeatedly adhering to these schedules trains the brain to anticipate transitions, reduces decision fatigue, and strengthens self-discipline. Consistent application ensures that mental capacity is preserved and prevents depletion. Prioritize tasks based on importance and urgency. Focus on completing essential activities before attending to less critical demands. Repetition of prioritization strengthens judgment, reduces cognitive load, and trains the mind to manage energy efficiently. Over time, prioritization becomes an automatic process, minimizing overwhelm. Learn to say no strategically. Declining tasks, invitations, or commitments that exceed capacity protects mental space. Repeated practice of refusing non-essential demands builds confidence, reinforces personal authority, and prevents depletion. The mind recognizes that limits are a tool for sustainability rather than selfishness. Establish sensory boundaries. Limit exposure to excessive noise, visual clutter, or digital stimuli that drain focus. Repeatedly practicing controlled sensory input strengthens concentration and reduces cognitive fatigue. The brain learns to filter irrelevant information, preserving energy for meaningful tasks. Implement technology breaks, reduce constant notifications, screen time, and digital multitasking. Repetition of technology boundaries conditions the mind to regain focus, recover energy, and maintain emotional balance. Over time, controlled interaction with devices becomes natural, preventing overload and distraction. Use environmental design to enforce limits. Arrange spaces to reduce distraction, provide comfort, and signal task focus. Repeatedly maintaining organized and intentional environments trains the mind to operate efficiently, enhancing clarity and reducing mental clutter. Segment large tasks into manageable portions. Breaking down complex projects into smaller steps prevents mental overwhelm. Repeatedly practicing segmentation reinforces the habit of pacing work, enhances productivity, and ensures progress without taxing cognitive resources excessively. Schedule regular mental breaks. Allow intervals for reflection, relaxation, and recovery between demanding activities. Repeated incorporation of breaks strengthens attention, reduces stress, and enhances long-term cognitive performance. The mind adapts to expect periods of recovery, sustaining energy throughout the day. Define emotional boundaries. Limit engagement with individuals, situations, or topics that consistently generate stress, guilt, or negativity. Repeated practice of emotional limits fosters resilience, protects mental stability, and ensures that attention remains focused on constructive experiences. Practice single tasking instead of multitasking. Focusing on one activity at a time reduces mental strain and increases efficiency. Repeatedly prioritizing single task execution conditions the brain to work with clarity, retain information better, and prevent overload. Over time, this habit reinforces sustained attention and high-quality output. Track cognitive energy throughout the day. Observe when focus peaks and declines, and schedule demanding tasks during optimal periods. Repetition of monitoring energy patterns enhances self-awareness, ensures effective use of mental capacity, and reduces exhaustion. Create limits on exposure to negative content. Restrict engagement with news, social media, or discussions that provoke fear, anxiety, or resentment. Repeated practice of filtering input preserves emotional energy and mental clarity, training the mind to focus on constructive information. Use clear start and end times for work. Avoid allowing tasks to spill into rest or personal time. Repeated adherence reinforces separation between effort and recovery, allowing the mind to recharge and preventing chronic cognitive overload. Practice mindful transitions between activities.
Pause briefly to recalibrate attention before starting a new task. Repetition of mindful transitions reduces residual stress from previous activities, improves focus, and maintains consistent mental performance. Establish limits on decision-making load. Reduce trivial choices through routines, planning, and automation. Repeatedly minimizing minor decisions preserves cognitive resources for significant matters, preventing fatigue and mental depletion. Implement relaxation techniques to reinforce boundaries. Practices such as deep breathing, stretching, or short walks signal the brain to release accumulated tension. Repetition strengthens the mind-body connection and ensures that mental limits are respected consistently. Define social boundaries consciously. Limit exposure to people who drain energy or generate conflict. Repeated practice of selective engagement reinforces emotional stability, strengthens self-respect, and preserves attention for meaningful relationships. Use mental compartmentalization to manage tasks and emotions. Allocate distinct mental space for work, personal life, and reflection. Repeated practice allows the mind to shift focus efficiently without residual interference, reducing stress and improving overall clarity. Practice reflection at the end of each day. Review what demands exceeded capacity, what was completed, and what can be delegated or deferred. Repeated reflection strengthens awareness of personal limits and informs better planning, ensuring mental workload remains manageable. Delegate responsibilities where possible. Recognizing tasks that others can handle frees cognitive space. Repeated practice of delegation reinforces the understanding that boundaries protect effectiveness rather than indicate weakness. Over time, the brain learns to distribute effort appropriately. Limit mental exposure to unresolved conflicts. Avoid ruminating excessively on disputes or challenging situations outside productive problem solving. Repetition of controlled engagement prevents overload and allows focused energy for actionable solutions. Adequate rest is essential for processing information, consolidating memory, and sustaining mental performance. Repeated commitment to regular sleep schedules strengthens cognitive function and protects against overload. Prioritize physical health to support mental limits. Nutrition, exercise, and hydration influence cognitive capacity. Repeated practice of attending to physical needs ensures that the brain has sufficient resources to function efficiently. Set boundaries on personal expectations. Avoid imposing unrealistic standards that strain mental resources. Repetition of setting achievable objectives strengthens confidence, reduces stress, and maintains sustainable cognitive load. Use clear communication to enforce boundaries with others. Expressing limits in a direct but respectful manner prevents misunderstandings and protects mental capacity. Repeated application reinforces consistency and teaches the mind that limits are both necessary and manageable. Practice digital decluttering. Organize files, emails, and applications to reduce mental friction. Repetition of systematic organization reduces cognitive load and frees attention for high-priority tasks. Schedule periodic mental resets. Take time away from complex or emotionally demanding tasks to reflect, rest, or engage in light activity. Repetition trains the mind to value recovery and prevents chronic overload. Monitor stress indicators consistently. Recognize headaches, fatigue, irritability, or difficulty concentrating as signs of exceeded limit. Repeated attention strengthens awareness and encourages timely adjustment before overload occurs. Establish limits on overanalysis. Excessive reflection can stall action. Repeatedly practicing decisive thinking ensures that the mind acts efficiently, conserving cognitive resources and avoiding paralysis by analysis. Incorporate creative outlets to distribute mental load. Activities such as drawing, music, or journaling provide alternative cognitive pathways and prevent overload from monotonous thinking.
Repetition ensures mental balance and emotional release. Prioritize clarity over completeness. Avoid attempting to absorb or process every detail. Repeatedly practicing selective attention ensures focus on critical information, preserving mental energy and preventing overwhelm. Define workspace boundaries. Maintain designated areas for work, rest, and leisure. Repeated practice reinforces mental association between environment and cognitive state, improving focus and reducing stress. Set limits on multi-tier responsibilities. Avoid simultaneously managing too many interconnected. Repetition of focused sequential engagement strengthens organization, reduces cognitive strain and enhances effectiveness. Practice regular mental decluttering. Identify and release outdated beliefs, unresolved tasks, and excessive commitment. Repetition ensures consistent mental hygiene, preventing accumulation of unnecessary cognitive weight. Establish limits for emotional absorption. Avoid taking on others' stress excessive. Repeated practice of maintaining emotional boundaries protects mental health and ensures sustainable empathy. Use prioritization matrices to clarify effort allocation. Determine which tasks demand attention and which can be deferred or eliminated. Repetition of structured evaluation strengthens decision-making and prevents overload. Integrate breaks for reflection and perspective. Pause to assess mental and emotional state periodically. Repetition reinforces awareness of capacity limits and maintains balance throughout the day. Practice saying no internally when obligations exceed capacity. Mentally rehearsing refusal prepares the mind for external enforcement. Repetition trains confidence and strengthens consistency in boundary application. Monitor cumulative load over weeks. Observe patterns in mental fatigue, stress, and productivity. Repeated assessment informs adjustments, ensuring limits evolve with changing demands and maintain protection of mental clarity. Balance mental exertion with restorative activity. Engage in hobbies, nature, or relaxation to replenish cognitive resources. Repeatedly integrating restorative periods prevents chronic depletion and supports sustained focus. Teach the mind to recognize overload cues, pay attention to irritability, distraction, or reduced efficiency. Repeated awareness reinforces early intervention and prevents full exhaustion. Combine cognitive limits with time management strategies. Structured scheduling, task sequencing, and deadline awareness reinforce sustainable mental engagement. Repetition strengthens habit formation and preserves energy for critical tasks. Reinforce limits through accountability. Share capacity constraints with trusted individuals to maintain adherence. Repeated practice ensures that mental boundaries are respected and enforced reliably. Daily, repeated practice of defining and respecting limits trains the mind to recognize capacity, prioritize energy, and maintain clarity. Over time, the brain internalizes these boundaries as natural protective mechanisms, preventing overload, reducing stress, and enhancing both cognitive performance and emotional resilience. Consistent application of limits transforms the way the mind approaches work, relationships, and life challenges, creating sustainable mental strength and clarity that supports overall well-being.
Chapter 10. Continue showing up even when hope feels distant. Showing up every day even when hope feels distant is the cornerstone of overcoming depression and reclaiming life. It is the commitment to presence, action, and persistence despite internal resistance, doubt, and emotional heaviness. Progress does not require dramatic breakthroughs. It begins with the quiet decision to engage, however small, in tasks, interactions, and routines that support well-being. The act of continuing to show up trains the mind to trust itself, reinforces resilience, gradually restores clarity, energy and confidence that despair often obscures. Start with minimal, achievable actions. Even standing, washing dishes, or making a bed represents engagement. Repeatedly choosing small tasks builds momentum and signals to the brain that effort matters. Over time, these actions accumulate, creating tangible evidence of capability and progress, reinforcing hope that may not yet feel present emotionally. Focus on routine as a foundation. Establishing a predictable daily structure supports the mind when emotional energy is low. Repeated adherence to a schedule of waking, eating, moving, and resting stabilizes mood and reduces the burden of busy-making. The brain benefits from predictability, making continuity possible even in difficult times. Acknowledge emotional heaviness without judgment. When hope feels distant, recognize that it is a natural state rather than a personal failure. Repeatedly practicing self-acknowledgement teaches the mind to tolerate discomfort, reducing avoidance and enabling continued engagement with life. Awareness strengthens the capacity to act even when motivation is low. Break larger goals into micro-actions. Focusing on one small step at a time prevents feeling overwhelmed by the weight of change or progress. Repetition of small achievable actions fosters confidence, reinforces agency, and encourages persistence. The mind begins to associate effort with accomplishment even when emotional reward is delayed. Use external anchors for accountability. Share commitments with trusted individuals or track progress in a journal. Repeatedly externalizing intention creates a support framework, making it easier to show up consistently despite internal doubt. Accountability reinforces the connection between action and growth. Visualize minimal success to create internal motivation. Imagining completing even the simplest tasks primes the brain to act despite low energy or hope. Repeated visualization enhances focus, clarifies priorities, and increases the likelihood of engagement. Mental rehearsal conditions the mind to recognize that movement, however small, leads to outcomes. Observe internal resistance carefully. Notice thoughts that discourage effort or signal withdrawal. Repeated acknowledgement of resistance without judgment allows the mind to distinguish between feeling and action. Persistence is reinforced not by eliminating discomfort, but by choosing to act in its presence. Anchor presence in sensory experience. Engage sight, sound, touch, and movement during daily activities to maintain focus and disrupt ruminative thought patterns. Repeated use of sensory attention strengthens mindfulness and stabilizes the mind, allowing continued engagement despite emotional heaviness. Celebrate minimal wins daily. Recognize every completed action, conversation, or step forward as meaningful. Repetition of acknowledgement builds internal motivation, reinforces habit formation, and gradually strengthens hope that may feel distant. The mind learns to value action independently from immediate emotional reward. Practice consistent self-talk. Use phrases that encourage effort, reinforce persistence, and validate experience. Repeated verbal reinforcement helps the mind maintain engagement and fosters resilience in the face of despair. Over time, these internal dialogues create a stable foundation for action regardless of emotional state. Integrate physical movement into daily engagement. Walking, stretching, or brief exercise increases energy, improves mood, and signals the brain that effort continues. Repetition of physical activity alongside showing up reinforces mental stamina and reduces emotional heaviness that might otherwise inhibit action. Set time-bound commitments for engagement. Even brief, fixed periods of attention to a task or interaction create structured opportunities to show up. Repeated adherence teaches the mind that consistency matters more than duration or perfection, gradually building endurance for sustained effort. Use reminders strategically. Notes, alarms, or visual cues
prompt action when motivation is absent. Repetition of responding to reminders reinforces habit, supports routine, and ensures continuity despite diminished hope. The brain associates cues with action over time, reducing reliance on fluctuating emotional energy. Engage with supportive community. Even minimal interaction with others who understand or encourage reinforces the value of presence. Repeated exposure to constructive social environments strengthens commitment to engagement and provides perspective when hope feels distant. The mind gains reassurance from connection and shared experience. Employ reflective practice at the end of each day. Review what was accomplished, no matter how small, and identify patterns that support persistence. Repetition of reflection reinforces learning, highlights progress, and creates a record of sustained effort that bolsters confidence over time. Pair engagement with mindful breathing. Using breath as an anchor during tasks stabilizes attention and reduces emotional overwhelm. Repeated practice strengthens the mind's capacity to act in the presence of low motivation or heavy feelings, maintaining continuity in daily life. Acknowledge emotional setbacks without abandoning effort. Experiencing disappointment, fatigue, or discouragement is normal. Repeatedly choosing to continue despite setbacks teaches the mind that progress is not linear, strengthening resilience and reinforcing the habit of showing up. Focus on what is controllable. Concentrate on actions, routines, and responses rather than outcomes or external validation. Repeatedly practicing control over personal engagement strengthens the mind's confidence in its ability to act and reduces paralysis from uncertainty. Use micro goals to create momentum. Daily objectives, such as making a phone call, completing a short task, or stepping outside, generate measurable progress. Repetition builds evidence of capability, encouraging continued effort even when hope is not emotionally accessible. Incorporate gratitude to sustain perspective. Recognizing small aspects of life that are stable or positive provides subtle reinforcement for continued engagement. Repeated reflection on these elements strengthens emotional balance and encourages persistent action despite internal heaviness. Combine mental rehearsal with action. Visualize completion and immediately act on small steps to bridge intention and behavior. Repetition trains the mind to align thought with execution, building trust in its capacity to persist even when hope feels distant. Observe physical cues, signaling withdrawal or fatigue. Recognizing tension, slouching, or shallow breathing allows proactive intervention through movement, rest, or adjustment of task intensity. Repeated monitoring reinforces self-awareness and sustains continuity of engagement. Practice scheduling restorative breaks. Incorporate moments for quiet, reflection, or light activity to prevent burnout. Repeated inclusion of recovery periods maintains energy for consistent participation in tasks and responsibilities. Seek inspiration in routine action. Notice progress and growth within mundane tasks, conversations, or decisions. Repetition of finding meaning in daily engagement builds internal motivation and reinforces persistence over time. Engage in problem-solving actively. When challenges arise, break them into achievable steps and act. Repeated practice of methodical problem-solving strengthens confidence in handling difficulties and supports consistent showing up. Use affirmations grounded in action. Phrases that reinforce effort, courage, and persistence support mental endurance. Repetition of action-oriented affirmations aligns the mind with commitment rather than fluctuating emotional states. Integrate sensory grounding techniques. Touch, movement, and environmental awareness anchor attention and reduce mental distraction. Repeated use strengthens focus, enabling engagement even when hope feels distant or energy is low. Develop a narrative of incremental progress.
Track repeated actions, milestones, and lessons learned. Observing cumulative effort reinforces the habit of showing up and gradually rebuilds confidence and internal hope. Engage in accountability partnerships. Share intentions, report progress, and discuss challenges with trusted individuals. Repetition of this social reinforcement strengthens consistency and reduces isolation during low motivation periods. Recognize emotional fatigue without surrendering effort. Validate heaviness while choosing to continue action. Repeated practice builds tolerance for discomfort and strengthens resilience, creating a reliable capacity to persist through challenging periods. Incorporate creativity into daily engagement. Small acts of creativity, reflection, or problem-solving enhance mental flexibility and provide reinforcement for persistence. Repeated creative engagement supports continuity and strengthens the mind's adaptive capacity. Observe positive physiological responses to action. Notice energy increases, reduced tension, or improved focus following engagement. Repetition reinforces the mind-body connection, demonstrating that consistent effort produces tangible benefit even when hope feels distant. Use micro-celebrations for each completed action. Recognizing even the smallest effort reinforces self-efficacy. Repetition strengthens the association between showing up and reward, motivating continued persistence. Anchor daily showing up in values. Align actions with personal priorities, purpose, or meaning, rather than emotional state alone. Repetition strengthens commitment to action and sustains continuity despite fluctuating hope. Practice self-compassion alongside persistence. Acknowledge that effort matters more than perfection. Repetition of self-kindness reinforces the ability to maintain engagement without succumbing to self-criticism or discouragement. Document repeated actions and lessons learned. Journaling or recording progress reinforces the value of continuity. Repetition creates a tangible record that supports motivation, perspective, and evidence of capability over time. Integrate physical movement with tasks to sustain energy. Standing, pacing, or stretching while engaging supports cognitive alertness and reduces the mental weight of heavy emotions. Repeated pairing of movement and action strengthens endurance and focus. Focus on consistency over intensity. Small, repeated efforts compound into significant results. Repetition reinforces the principle that showing up consistently matters more than dramatic bursts of effort, especially when hope feels distant. Combine reflection with planning. Review what worked, what was challenging, and plan next step. Repeated practice builds strategic persistence, reduces overwhelm, and reinforces ongoing engagement. Engage with sources of support intentionally. Seek guidance, encouragement, or mentorship during low motivation period. Repetition of support seeking reinforces connection and sustains continuity of action. Observe and adjust energy allocation. Recognize when mental or emotional resources are depleted and modify engagement intensity. Repeated awareness and adjustment strengthen sustainability and prevent burnout while maintaining consistent showing up. Celebrate the act of persistence itself. Recognizing effort independent of immediate results reinforces internal motivation. Repeated acknowledgement teaches the mind that showing up is a meaningful achievement, cultivating resilience and eventual restoration of hope. Daily, repeated engagement, even when hope feels distant, trains the mind to act despite emotional heaviness. Persistence becomes habitual, resilience strengthens, and incremental progress accumulates into meaningful change. Over time, consistent showing up restores confidence, clarity, and agency, proving that commitment to action sustains life and growth even when the internal experience suggests otherwise.